Yes.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 18 of the Kids From It podcast. You're joined by me, TJ Whitehead, Powers Taken Not Given, joined by Kay and Carla. Kay, how you been doing?
Just surviving.
Yeah, that's all we can do,
Surviving.
right? Yeah. So, Carla, yourself?
I'm here.
Doing well. Living the life.
Yeah. We're just a few kids trying to make it, just trying to survive in today's world. I was kind of jarred yesterday when I realized it was September 1st. I said, man, it's September, right? That happened to you too?
Bruh, I can't deal with it. Yeah. I feel like January just started. It was a really long, I specifically remember how long January was this year.
Yeah.
And now it's September. That's not mathing for me.
It's not cool.
It's always such a long month. I don't know.
January, it is. It kind of is. I think it's because in January you're coming down from the holiday season and you're like, oh, that's right. A whole nother year ahead. Yeah. The only fun I had all year is over. And now I got to get back to the grind of regular ass life. And at least everything's digitized now. So you don't have to get used to writing out a new year. Remember how you fuck that up all the time? Every January you still write the old year. But now the machines take care of it for us.
Yeah. I haven't thought about how that hasn't been a problem until you just said that. Wow. I never write the year until halfway through. When I finally purchased a planner, when they go on sale at Walmart, they're like halfway through the year. That's when I start writing it. And that's when I start fucking it up. You're right. So that was just like yesterday, this summer.
So I remember I had to do a essay for an Army course I went to. And so you had to do a handwritten essay and then type the essay. When is the last time you wrote a page worth of words? Hand was on fire. It hurt so bad because it's been over a decade easily before last time I actually had to hand write more than a couple words at a time. But yeah, man, it's not fun. I've lost that skill completely.
And your fingers cramp up in like 10 seconds. You kind of forget how to even write. It's like,
it's terrible. It's terrible.
I actually do know this struggle with you. I continuously tell myself that I'm going to write a book. And for some reason, I feel like it's going to come more organically for me if I just try to write it, like journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So at least once a year, I try to sit down and start that book or start that like aggressive journaling. I don't know. I never make it far either. And then I get weird about my pens and my pencils. And I'm like, you know what? Should have done this on the computer. I'm going to table this till Christmas. And then we start the cycle over again.
Right? Yeah. It's like the old technology dies in the past. Not once have I ever whipped out an abacus to solve a math problem. I'm not sliding beads. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this shit. There's nothing noble about submitting to past shit. It's kind of like, it reminds me when old people, when they complain that kids don't learn to write cursive anymore. Who gives a fuck? Like, who cares? It doesn't matter.
Honestly, we have this whole generation that I don't know if y'all are like me, but I write half cursive, half print, and there's no undoing that in like my natural handwriting. And when I'm talking or I'm like writing for younger people, like whether it's my kids, my staff, I have to be like, okay, this is what this is. I wish they would just let it go so I didn't have to try to explain it. I don't know.
Yeah. It is strange how cursive is already crazy old people writing. It's like some weird hieroglyph that if you're 15, you have no idea what you're looking at. Yeah, and it's hard to explain too. Like, yeah, we did it to write quicker. It's like, what? Okay, whatever. But
did we?
Yeah, I know.
Is that the reason behind cursive? What? I thought it was because it was pretty.
I just felt fancy doing it.
Yeah, I thought it was like.
Well, if you think about it, like if you're writing in blocks, it's a lot more stilted than like the flow of cursive, and it just follows your hand. You know what? At least that's what I assumed.
Okay. Then I blame capitalism for cursive and the whole other reason I hate it.
This is random trivia. It's only like tangentially related to this, but the term upper and lowercase letters, that didn't come across in the English language until like the 1500s. And before that, there was only uppercase. There was no such thing as a lowercase letter. And the lowercase
I feel like that's how it should be. I feel like we left it like that.
I know. I write in uppercase.
I do pretty often as well.
So lowercase letters came about with the printing press. And if you could fit more words on a page, you could make more money. And so they started making smaller versions of the letters. And and so you could fit more words on a page. It was just more efficient to read.
And again, capitalism. God, I hate it here.
And get this. So the printing press had like 2 drawers. And in the top drawer is where they kept the big letters, and the bottom drawer they kept the small letters, and that's where we got uppercase and lowercase, because it was literally in the uppercase and the lowercase. Yeah, so weird shit. Cool. Yeah. Etymology is kind of a big thing. I love that shit. I love finding out where words came from and everything. The stories are always really fascinating. Oh man. Okay. So, folks, actually, we were talking about stuff with religion today.
Yeah, real stuff coming in.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I'm sure everybody tuned in, learned the etymology of words.
We were talking about. We were worried that we wouldn't have banter, and then we just went down so many.
Here we are.
Yeah. If you folks want more banter, please let us know. We'll gladly supply it anytime you want.
We will hit you with the weird random shit.
That's our best fun right there. But what we wanted to discuss today was what it was like growing up in the independent fundamental Baptist movements and Christian fundamentalism, and how much it directly associates with literal cult programming. And not just, we're saying that flippantly, like it actually does. There's been studies on this. And so what I'm going to do is pull up a little window here. We see 4 signs of cult programming. Where do we got this? Okay, let's go. All right. So what I'm going to go over here is a Business Insider article, and it's about a work that was written by a mental health professional named Stephen Hassan. And he talks about what the defining character, what some defining characteristics of cult programming are. And I think there's 4 of them that he goes over here. And then we'll talk about 4 topics that we can discuss in person. So here are some warning signs he advised loved ones to look out for when you suspect that someone might be in a cult. And the first one is the person is in an especially vulnerable state. And that one jumped out immediately because of something that Kayla mentioned, like in our first or second episode. Do you remember, Kayla, when you talked about how often you found these independent fundamental Baptist churches around military installations?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like what do you think that could play in a part with people being emotionally vulnerable, and how?
Well, I think it definitely does, because military families, when I first made that introduction, we started talking about it. I remember we talked about how vulnerable soldiers are, and I do totally agree with you. There's a whole ways of vulnerability there that I probably don't even understand, but even my first thought was the families, like women, like alone with children while spouses are deployed and stuff like that, and seeking away from their families, seeking like community. Of course, like church is going to be one of the first places that a lot of people, immediately go to find community. And so I think that's exactly why they're there.
Yeah. Carla, did you run across that at all?
Sorry, the cats are fighting right now.
Not the cats.
Hold on.
Where's Wolfie? Get Wolfie in here to rest.
No, Wolfie, yeah. It's like, so did you ever notice any patterns of these independent fundamental Baptist churches preying on people who are in emotionally damaged states?
Yes, those were the people that they helped the most, because looking back, it was easier for them to brainwash them, I guess, like this person's distraught. They had just been through whatever kind of trauma, or just they were lost and wanted to find some kind of hope and happiness. And like church members would just prey on them and take them under their wing, and then kind of groom them to their liking to make them the type of Christian that they thought they should be. So it was interesting seeing, like, back then we looked up to people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, that's really creepy. Like, that's sus behavior, man or woman. Yeah. It was just not okay.
And it was usually a slow burn to get to that point. I think this is a great time to put an emphasis on like what a lifelong commitment this is for a lot of people, in the IFB community, and going from them getting you in when at that point of vulnerability to, it takes a couple years maybe, or I don't know, in some circumstances, I'm sure it takes less than that, but but they're willing to put that time in. Like there's no worry about you know, do we have enough time? Like it's a slow process to get everybody where they want, where you want you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
One thing I noticed too is addicts. Addicts are prime targets for this movement, and I said before, it's like my dad had alcohol problems, and that's what got him into the church. And the thing about targeting people who are addicts and replacing it with a religious indoctrination is that it works. It works. Again, it works like a charm, and a lot of people will. I always say, like, I don't believe in religion or God, anything like that, but I wouldn't want to try to take that away from my dad. I wouldn't, because, I mean, honestly, as much as I despise this movement, it almost certainly saved my dad's life. Almost certainly. Like, my dad probably wouldn't be alive today if he hadn't joined the church back in the 90s. And so I recognize that there's no arguing against that. Like if something shows immediate results and positive, like all the way across, well, not all the way across, but definitely preferable to where you were.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to say to that? And so I think it's a bit of a mental sleight of hand. And what I don't like about that, it tricks people into thinking that they weren't strong enough themselves, that they didn't actually solve their problems, that it was like an outside force. Yes, it helped, but you're the one who made that decision, but it's a very real thing. And what you guys, I can't remember which one of you said about them bringing people in. I remember this happening a lot. I saw it occasionally with women, but it was mostly men that I saw this happen to, where, out of nowhere, some 28-year-old dude would start coming to church, and which is rare. Like usually it was families that came in, but it was just some guy that was kind of a ne'er-do-well, and he just showed up, and the church kind of took him under their wing, and they kind of got him in activities and everything. That was something I saw quite often.
I did see that as well. I'm glad you said that, and I think that they were probably. Well, let me not say what I was going to say, but
Too late. Say it.
I'm just saying, the church community and the leaders and pastors. When I imagine, why is that, or how could that be? They were probably out and living their daily lives and saw someone, physically saw this guy or whoever he was alone and struggling, struck up a conversation with him, and convince them to come to church. Like that, it's exactly what it looked like. I guess it was some random guy is what I'm getting at. But I also feel like they did target kids in the community too. Because I can't remember if my sister and I started. I think we actually started in the school, but that was our first exposure into IFB. But then we ended up either sometime right around when we first started with the school on the bus, because my mom wasn't actively going to church at the time. So, and I remember going around and trying to find other kids to go on the bus. Like we were, the kids were out looking for kids to convince to get on the bus. Yeah. And we were in communities that there would just be kids running around that could get on buses. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know.
I agree with you on that with the bus kids. That was another, for my church at least, but that I feel like they introduced the teenagers and the young adults into learning how to I don't want to say groom those kids, but take the kids under our wings and
almost
find and find the ones who are the most troubled and just work with them. I got along great with the ones that were the most difficult, because I was like, I know this all is crazy. It sounds weird, but I got you. I'm here. It's not going to be all
Thunder buddies.
Yeah, just making them because I genuinely wanted them to feel safe, but I feel like, other people had other intentions, more so to gain favor within the church and not even really care about the kid, because a lot of the times I never saw them even revisit those children, and they would make it past a certain stage within the church, and then after that they were kind of on their own, and I'm like, what's the point? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And then they would leave. The kids would just leave. So I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah. The bus kid, real quick diversion. But Kaylee, you were talking about how this was just a neighborhood where the kids would just run around and they could hop on buses. This is I feel like we grew up in a different reality. I mean, when I look around and seeing how kids are raised today versus how we were raised, and I know that's such an old person thing to say, but even just how, think about your average Saturday and how you were unsupervised for like 12 hours a day. You were just gone. You got up in the morning, you ate breakfast, you went outside to play, you played for hours. Your folks had no, like, stay somewhere on these 2 streets, and you did. And they
almost killing my sister. Whatever.
Yeah, they had you had no adult supervision the entire morning. You came back for lunch, and if it was summer, you didn't come back home till like 8 p.m. I mean, like, your parents didn't see you all fucking day. Could you imagine that ever happening today? Like, I just couldn't imagine anybody just go ahead.
There is no place where kids, there is, everybody knows now that, like, no, you can't just let kids run around. It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Why are they responsible?
Yeah, like, the world has vastly changed, and even I be watching crime documentaries all the time. But you always tell, like, the older ones, they're like, and back then, like, you could go out and do this, and it was like the 90s, So, and they were right. You're right. We could do stuff.
This is hold on, let me see if I can pull this up here. Oh, by the way, I figured out you can pause. Oh. We're just starting.
Keep going. Cut that.
We'll got it. It's fine. So this isn't exactly what I was looking for, but it is close enough. And so about that, about the how we used to go out and play, and our folks just let us do it. They had, are you okay? You're gonna live, Kayla?
Yeah, I was choking on it. There's a lot going on.
So this is the amount of, like, child abductions since since 97, and it's plummeted like crazy. Like, it's gone way so the chart, if you go back to like the 60s and 70s, it's even higher. And so,
really?
So this is the thing. Yeah, people let their kids go out and play. A lot of them got fucking kidnapped. Like, a lot of them died. That's why we don't do it anymore, because kids were literally, they're just slim pickings or easy pickings out there.
You're right.
There were so many serial killers back then too.
Yep.
Many.
Yeah.
And so many.
And,
I have goosebumps right now. I'm excited. We're talking serial killers.
Well, yeah. So it's funny. Kai and I. There's a really fun. So there's a great section in our last episode 17. You guys check it out. It's
yeah, boy.
And Kai and I have this conversation about murder, and we going on. And I mentioned how in college I took this general psychology class, and I was floored to find out that the police murder solve rate was 50%. I was only half the crime, or half the murders were solved. Yeah, I had the same look, Carla. And I was doing a video about this a couple weeks ago, and I decided to pull up the stats. It's gotten worse. It's 30% now. Police only solve 30% of murders. And reasons for that is the same reason that serial killers have actually decreased over the years, because forensics make it, serial killers just like spit on people's bodies and shit. Like, okay, now you're just caught now if you do that shit today. But the standard of evidence is also higher. That, back in the day, it's like, yeah, I'm sure he did it, but now juries want a whole lot more. And then we're just going off on that most crimes, Kayla, you'd have loved this actually. Yeah, the true crime shit, because we were talking about kidnappings, and I was saying how.
What'd you say? My headphones.
I said, Kayla, you would have loved this conversation that we had, because it tied to purity culture, believe me, but it was about abductions and kidnappings. And I was saying how people overblow the kidnapping stats in 2 different ways. The first is, you'll always see these things saying that 500,000 kids were kidnapped this year, which, yeah, that's true. But like 85% of those kidnappings are like divorced parents squabbling over, they didn't bring the kid back on Sunday, they brought him on Monday. It's technically a kidnapping. And also where people keep like, you guys probably see Facebook posts, whatever. It's like, yeah, I was in a Target parking lot and this guy was acting all suspicious. I think he was going to human traffic me. No, he wasn't. Here's what he's like we pull the stats out, like, the odds of a stranger like kidnapping you in the United States for human trafficking, it's literally 1 in a million. It's like one out of 700, nearly one out of 720,000 people who are trafficked are by a stranger. Odds are it's going to be someone you know. And it's going to be someone you know, and so a family member. And it's like that with every crime, like every single crime, murder, rape, homicide, child abduction, kidnapping. Odds are it happened from someone you know. So yeah. So the point of the story was, if someone was planning to commit a murder. If you commit the murder against someone you don't know, you have a good chance of not getting caught. Like a 7 out of 10 chance the cops will never catch you. They have no way to connect that to you. But yeah, that was some wild shit. But anyway,
on today's episode of How to Get Away with Murder.
I know, right? Now, once again, yeah, Kai made me offer a very firm equivocation that in no way, shape, manner, or form does the Kid Permit podcast condone murder, manslaughter, murder in the second or third degree, vehicular homicide, anything like that. We're
just giving some facts, some figures here. We're just throwing it out.
But we report, you decide. You know, that's how we go with it. So, all right. So let's go to another one here with another way to point out some potential cult-like activity. I think it's this one. All right. The person becomes close to a charismatic figure who begins to have influence over them. And I think we all already know what this type is. Like, we all know the wild, charismatic preacher and how strong, like, it's necessary to keep the flock together. I often said over the last 8 years now that Donald Trump reminds me a lot of an old-timey, like, church preacher. Like, he does. Like, not in the way he acts or speaks, but
the way he communicates.
Yes, his manner of communication.
His rallying.
Oh, you're muted, Kayla.
Sorry, I meant to be muted. I didn't mean to cut myself off. I needed to get my AirPod charger. But yeah, he like rallies people up the way preachers do. I know exactly what you're talking about. I think that very often too.
Carla, you ever run across this? I'm sure you met a charismatic preacher or two in your time.
Oh my goodness. My very first pastor ever growing up in California. That was the strictest it's ever been for me, IFB wise.
Thank you.
He was the type that I told you before. He would just scream and yell and like instill fear into us, but also like hyping us up to also be, like, angry Christians and to be like, yeah, hate the gays, they're going to hell. Like, I don't hate the gays, I'm gay, I love you guys. But like, we would just somehow scare us, but also charge us up, get us all riled up to fight the good fight, you know, and stand up for whatever he stood for. I don't even think we really thought about the Bible. We're just like, oh, what he says goes, so I'll follow him, you know?
Yeah. I always thought that, like, an evil version of me, I could be like a TV preacher, because when I realized that all these practicing Christians have no fucking clue what the Bible says. They don't have any idea at all. And it's not, and to like the right kind of sociopath, they can really use that to their advantage to kind of just tell their flock to do whatever they want them to do. And another example here, I want to read this one. The person is involved in a group with religious principles that differ from the mainstream. Some cults have specific religious agendas, and Hassan said it is important not to lump all religious behaviors together or treat them in the same way when trying to identify whether someone is involved in a cult-like religious group. Some religious fringe groups can differ greatly in teaching from mainstream religion, he told The Insider. For example, groups may manipulate their followers for money, could be seen as cults, as they have a twisted Christianity in which a way that takes away the good part of religious experience, he said. Now, that one I found a lot more vague. We lost Kayla. But that one I found a lot more vague. Like, how do you decide between, are these religious beliefs good or are these religious beliefs harmful? Like, how would you go about deciphering that?
I really didn't. Like, I just went off based on his passion behind what he was screaming about. So if he was like doubly angry about something, then yeah, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, that's not right. When in fact, I had no clue if it was right or wrong. I didn't look for myself in the Bible. I didn't search for myself to find, more context behind it and proof. It was just because you are a pastor, you are supposed to be the man in charge. So I am going to listen to whatever you say. And that's how I deciphered it. But eventually I got older and came into my own feelings, even though I tried to fight that off because we're also not supposed to. Our own feelings were bad.
Yep.
So I don't know, just I kept getting gut feelings about things I used to support that are not okay.
Mhm.
And then eventually it was just like, okay, this isn't right. And so
Yeah.
that's for myself and probably for other people too, was the start of my journey to like come into my own with deciding what's right and what's wrong and actually taking the time to like read the Bible and be like, oh, it doesn't say that. What?
Yeah, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to thine
Mhm.
own understanding. They made that very clear. They encourage
Yep.
you not to think, if you have that, that thought in your head, ignore it. Ignore
Yep.
it. Your own
Push
understanding
it
is
all the
bad.
way to the back.
Yep, just like you said. And another one here, the person is not able to step away from the community even for a short period of time. Many cult-like organizations are known for encouraging people to renounce their family and cut off contact with the outside world. Hassan said, if you're sure you're not in a brainwashed state or in a cult, then prove it to yourself and prove it to your family. Step out of the experience for a week. Now, this one is like, unique in that it could happen to people, but it's not universal from what
Yeah.
I've noticed. Have you run across that in your time?
I didn't even have to step away for a week, TJ, as soon as we went to the mall, because our community was so enclosed. And if I wasn't at church, if I wasn't at my friend's house who also went to the same church, or if I wasn't at an activity, like remember, every day was filled with church or school at the church. So when we finally got a second and convinced my mom to even take us to the mall, that's when I noticed. I was like, as a kid, like 7 years old, like, oh, we're different. Like
Mhm.
we're wearing pants. I'm like Googling everybody. My jaw's dropped, my eyes are big. I felt like a kid in a candy store because I'm like, is this what the rest of the world is like? Are these people really bad? Like my pastor is saying they are? Like
Mhm.
they look so happy. I don't think
Yeah.
they're miserable like he says they are. They don't look lost to me.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, a night and day difference. It did not even take a week for me to realize like, yeah, I'm a part of something different for sure. I didn't know it was a cult back then, but I knew I was different.
Yeah. Kayla, did you ever run across anything where like the church like discourage people from separating from the flock for any reason whatsoever as a control method to keep them thinking the way they wanted?
I feel and hi, I'm sorry that I like ditched in the middle of you guys talking, and especially you, Carlos. Sorry. Well, I think I was like right in the middle of you talking. My audio went out, but I feel like I saw it a lot, obviously everywhere. I mean, as Carlo, you were talking, I was thinking about all the times at the Haven where I felt like we were out in public and people should have known that we looked different, like way
Mhm.
different or something like that. But I also I moved around a lot and I went to quite a few different IFB churches, and I can like one in particular is like sticking out to me, and it's in Fayetteville. That was like a little bit more intense with that the isolating. I felt like uh my early experience in IFB was like always like to soul win, soul win, soul winning. We were always out
Mhm.
soul winning. It was such a constant emphasis. And by the time I got to this was the last IFB church that we were involved in. It was a totally opposite experience. It was like stay away from the world, stay away from the world. And we could not have gotten smaller. And I think and they're still standing today and they're still going, and they're like a very, very tiny
Wow.
congregation. Which I think is how they like it, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but
To
yeah, it
that
was
point, of soul winning, my church also made that a big thing. So you never really had a weekend growing up. It was always you're in church
yeah.
doing something, working for it, working on the church. Saturdays were the soul winning days. Get up
Mhm.
9 or 10 a.m., have breakfast or fellowship with one another, and then go out and soul win for like 7 hours. Just
Yeah.
walking around, literally walking all day, knocking on doors. Just wow. And I thought I was doing something so great.
Which
But
and like knocking on doors just I can't put a
like
greater emphasis
you.
on what a roller coaster that was, like, every weekend to be
Yeah.
a kid or a teen, and, like, one house is gonna rip you a new asshole, and you have to deal with
Right.
that, and then the next house is gonna ask, like, "What's going on here?" And the next house is gonna try to grill you, and it was just,
Mhm.
like, not only were we out in, danger maybe, speaking of those stats earlier, TJ, but, then it was like emotional. It was a lot to deal with,
Oh yeah.
going
And
door to door. I just want to emphasize that for the
yeah,
listeners.
and I remember I wanted to take Taekwondo classes. So the only classes available were Saturdays. My mom wasn't too happy about it, but she's like, we can't miss soul winning. Like that's
Oh no.
what
The souls will be lost.
yeah, exactly. So she finally caved. I was able to do Taekwondo up until I got my yellow belt, and that's when the pressure just got to her because people within the church were like, why are you taking your daughter out on Saturdays? Like, she should be soul winning. We should be in church. You're not a part of this anymore. Like, it's one slippery slope. You take one step out, and it's only going to go from there. So they instilled fear in her, and she pulled me right out of Taekwondo. And I was so mad because I was like, I'm never going to learn how to fight.
Damn.
Those are good life skills too.
Yeah, that was something useful,
Yeah.
All right. So, yes, Kayla, you read my mind. I was going exactly like so. The soul winning that we didn't do weekends when I was at Maranatha. We did Wednesday. So Wednesday we got out of school at 3:30, and then we would go soul winning. Those who's volunteered to go soul winning after school, and then we go soul winning. We come back, at 5:30, and they would have like lunch for us, or I guess dinner for the kids, and so that was cool. I eat there, but how fucking wild was this shit that they just took these children like from 7th to 12th grade, they threw us in a van, picked a random neighborhood, dropped us off in the street,
dropped us
off. Yep. You'll go in teams of 2, this 13-year-old and this 15-year-old, and you guys knock on all these doors, go the next street over, knock on all those doors. Yep. I'll pick you up in 55 minutes. And just once again, children going just door to door. And like you said, Kayla, like people could rip you a new asshole and everything. But when you said that, I thought, yeah, that's true. Although kind of weird. Imagine a child knocks on your door and invites you to their church. Are you going to argue with that kid? Because that happens a lot.
Some of them will.
It happens a lot. I was like, thanks, 9th grader, for inviting me to your church. I won't be going. I'm sure as hell not going to have a theological debate with you. And it happened all the time. It happened all the time that we would have to like defend the faith like we're King Henry VIII or something.
Yes,
it's just like, I can't believe that shit happened. And once again, it is amazing none of us got kidnapped. Like we all could have got kidnapped with a hat. Like, you're literally walking up to a stranger's house. We could have gone to John Wayne Gacy's house for all we knew and just knocked on his door and it was like, oh my God.
Carla and I would have been fine.
Yep.
You'd have been fine.
PJ.
That's true.
Carla and I would have been fine. Sorry, that was not okay. My bad.
Oh man, it's true. We could have gone to Ted Bundy's house. There we go. Then I'd have been okay. But yeah. Oh, that's some wild shit. I can't believe that. That's just so irresponsible. To then again, I guess it was a different time. Like leaving kids unsupervised was just something that you did. It was perfectly.
It really wasn't something that they should have been doing though. It wasn't even then. It really wasn't a thing that you did. It was a thing that we did, the IFB did, and it was just that was traumatic. It was a small trauma, but it was.
That was some fucked up shit. Like I even the concept of just going door to door to invite people to church is kind of weird.
Like,
right?
Passing out.
Anybody comes to my house, politicians, I don't give a fuck. Like, some kid wanted to mow my grass. Like, if you don't have my phone number and you didn't text me first, you're not welcome here. Yeah. Actually, I do always open the door for the Bible door knockers though, because I want to make sure that they're okay. Like, I open the door to do a wellness check on them. It makes sure it's not like little kids. Oh, thanks. What am I going to do though if they're not okay?
I don't know.
Do you want me to call 911? No, I guess
come inside to my house, child.
Oh, yeah.
What are you gonna do? Yeah. What are you going to do? You know what? That happened too. On more than one occasion, I remember people inviting us in and saying, "Hey, have some lemonade and we can talk about." That happened. And it's like, who's inviting children into their house like that? Oh God, it's just that's kind of fucked up. But Kayla, you were saying that like when these folks if you know me, don't show up on my door unannounced. I don't care
Yeah.
if I
For
know
real.
you.
I will not answer it if I don't know you.
Yeah, fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It's some wild shit. Times have definitely changed. All right, so what we did, and we're gonna pivot to this real quick, is go into some of the specific indicators of how these cults. In Stephen Hassan's book, he originally refers to it as mind control, and since then he's updated it to offering undue influence, just because like the term mind control has all the baggage and everything. But we're gonna discuss. Let's pull up the old website here, and here we go. The bite model, and there's going to be 4 different sections here. It'll be behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. And what we did is we went through this little checklist here, and we picked one of them for each category, and we will discuss something that we saw in the independent fundamental Baptist movement that correlates to what we saw here. So we'll start with Carla here with behavior control. Okay, did you find one that stood out to you that you think was an example of?
Yeah, one I can remember vividly is financial exploitation. First thing I think of is tithing. And it was really weird. Oh my goodness. For myself as a teenager, being guilt tripped by my own parents, thankfully they're like not weird about that now, but back then being guilt tripped because whenever I started making more money at whatever job I had, or I had a really good babysitting gig and I got a lot of money for that amount of time that I watched them, they knew how much I made and they're like, okay, so you need to give like 10%. That means give more than what you gave last time. Like give all of this. And I'm like, no, I earned this money. Like what? And then there were times where our family would be struggling and my dad would finally get like, a really good job. And then just all the money straight to the church. And then he would always say, well, we're not going to be blessed if I don't tithe. Like, we're not going to get the blessings. I was like, yeah, we will if you keep the money.
What if that was the blessing, bro?
That was the blessing.
What if the money was the blessing?
Yo, pay these bills. Let's get a bigger house. Let's get a nicer car. Like, dang. And so the church itself, I remember we would have sometimes like a week-long, what is it? Not evangelism. Revival, yeah. And it would be all about tithing. And the sermons would be so focused on just kind of into like,
Oh my God, no, I don't think that I really realized it back then, but the revivals were so like focused on giving.
And the whole offering plate, that whole session took way longer than it normally would. It'd be like, back down and be like,
Carla,
I've seen more than this before. I know you guys have more in your pockets.
I'm waiting for the Lord to move somebody to make a big offering.
I was like, wow, this is my last $5.
That's all I got to eat. What?
Carla, I wrote down revivals too. But for a different reason. But it fits right in. And I wrote down revivals and mission trips. Once again, different, but they dovetail right in. And when you talked about the offering plate, one, it's like social coercion because the plate's coming by. It's like, man, I haven't seen you donate to the offering plate.
Yeah, it's in front of everybody.
Yeah,
I wonder how they do that these days when no one carries cash. Like, I really wonder how that works because no one's walking around.
They probably have the cash app at the end of every pew.
Yeah,
probably.
It's like it has to be, right? But that's
would
just so
horrify me.
People probably write checks and they have a little envelope, the monthly.
Oh yeah, the faith promise thing that you would write down. Hey, I'm pledging, $100 a month to the church, and I remember that.
Used to go
I'd be filling those things out like crazy.
11 years old, $500. Never.
17 years old. I'm gonna donate these nuts.
My friends would be like,
That's so funny. That's so funny. I'm so mad I never did that. That is hilarious. God, that's funny. That's really
I used
great.
to fill out the visitor cards with the most wild shit.
Damn, you guys had so much more fun than I did. That's hilarious too. This is I'm a visitor. See more butts. I came to visit the church.
Want to visit these nuts?
Visit these nuts. This is a huge erection. I'm here to continue your church. Yeah, God, that'd be funny. God, I'm so. I'm gonna go to a church next Sunday and fill out a visitor's card. That's really funny. And another one was So do you guys remember when missionaries would come visit every now and again?
Yes.
And it was always the same thing. They always showed up and they said, hey, I'm a missionary to French Guiana. And, just so you know, I've seen a lot of demons and spirits there. I have no proof of it. The more remote the location, the further it is from like the modern world. Apparently, the demons love that place. Shame you guys can't see it, but please donate to me because this place only has 5 Bible-believing churches in the whole country. They would always say that. They would always say
the other churches don't count.
The other ones
only
don't count.
IFB.
Yep. There's 1,000 churches, but there's only 5 real ones, and I need to be number 6. And then at the end, they would play that slideshow, and it always be "People Need the Lord" would always be playing that. And then they're like, all right, don't you want to give some money? You cheap bastards, hand over the cash. And so, that financial manipulation was pretty strong. That was a great.
It was always like that. Always the missionaries were performative. Like you could tell this was like they were going on the road. They were raising money. That was exactly what they were here for.
Yeah. They all did the same thing. Same routine, same pattern.
Yeah.
Some of their stories were pretty fun, though. I did enjoy the stories the missionaries had. I didn't believe half of them, but I did find them entertaining. I'll at least give them that. Yeah. How about you, Kayla? Which one did you pick from behavior?
So for me, I always am trying to I guess draw emphasis on the Haven experience. So really everything on the list, but I particularly wanted to point out the separation from families. That was so when I went to the Haven, it was proposed to my family. It wasn't my parents' idea. It was the preacher's idea, my pastor's idea. And then it was supported by the other, important families in the church. And I really think that my parents experienced probably, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they were kind of pressured into it. So when I look at it from
this girl has to go. She's got
this is
everyone
a problem.
Get her out of here.
Yeah, we're having to bring in a unit to whoop her ass. She gotta go.
Oh my god.
So they experienced some pressure, but
I said,
Kayla got chased at a church like Frankenstein.
They're like, can't even save this
pitchforks.
One. It's locked down for her. But there is this whole, first of all, there's a whole teen industry in America. And then the underbelly of the teen industry is where there's this there's cult teen industry, right? So I'm laughing, but I was not that wild at this time of my life. And I don't think any normal family or normal situation or normal people looking in would have been yeah, she needs to go away. I was just a teenage girl, and I had a weird upbringing and I was confused and trying to figure stuff out. But, that was their whole thing. When we talk about having the teens go out and how I said, it's almost like recruiting, I think the original idea of these homes was kind of something like that. They were going to get in control of these kids as well as abuse them or for whatever motivation might have been there. But then after we've got, these pre-made, ready to go, incredible testimony, perfect, IFBers to put back into churches. And I don't think it really has gone that way for most of them. But, it's a bigger grand scheme to me. Yes, they're trying to separate kids and teens from their families so that they can continue this pattern and crank these people out. But
yeah, that's interesting. You talked about how it didn't work for a lot of you. I'm curious to know what the stats are on this for people who get put into those Christian group homes. What the success rate is. I guess success rate would be people who stayed with the religion or the movement in general, because lower than people would guess. Because you go through that and it's a nightmare. Who would want to continue that for their lives, the lives of their kids?
Yeah.
And so. For behavior, I picked group indoctrination and you guys kind of focused on a lot of these, but mainly the one that I thought of was the repetition of actions for the indoctrination. Because unlike most Christian denominations, do you guys remember how odd it was when you found out that most Christians don't go to church 3 times a week? Like, you remember that? Because I thought we all did that. I thought every church had like Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. I thought that's the way it was. Like, no, that's really just us. Like, a lot of churches, they have it once a week, like normal people. And that's not on top of, like you said, the like bi-yearly revivals. You probably had 2 revivals a year where you hung out at church all day long, essentially, several preachers a day, getting you revived for the Lord and hand over some of that cash and everything. And I this first really hit me when I stopped going to church. And I stopped going to church.
You're like, what do I do with all this free time?
Yeah.
So much room for activities.
And when I was gone, I very quickly started receding away from the faith. It didn't take long at all. It's like, oh, I get it now. If they keep you doing this 3 times a week, you stay bought in. You get, you get rejuvenated every Sunday. You meet other people who think the same thing, but you stop seeing them for a month or 2, and you're like, why am I going to go back? And by the way, that sounded ridiculous. It didn't take long at all. I was shocked how quickly I could detach from it just by missing a few weeks of church.
Yeah, damn. I've not really thought about it like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
you have to be cramming it down your throat like pretty constantly to get you to buy this.
Yeah, and it makes sense why they push it so much, because I guarantee they've seen it. Because actually, we did hear this, that you stop going to church and a lot of people don't come back, and you thought,
backsliding.
Oh, those sinners, backsliding. Yeah, look at those sinners. I can't believe they stopped going, and then you stop going. You're like, yeah, I'm not going back. No, I'm fine. It turns out. Yeah, I wasn't struck by a bolt of lightning. I haven't been, smitten with a plague or anything. Why am I going to go back? It's perfectly fine. Right. All right. So let's go to the second one, the I in bite here. And it's going to be information control. And we'll go to Kayla first. What do you think? Which one did you run across?
My entire upbringing, like my entire teen years, which were, the peak of my IFB involvement, was like nothing but control of like the media content and anything like we were talking about while we were on break, the world, like the worldly influence. And that came directly from the pulpit. And then to my parents, it was their job, or to our parents to like protect us from this stuff. And then it was like this umbrella over our home. Like we couldn't listen to whatever music. And so it filtered down from the top, just like everything in IFB, and right into our homes. And it was like intense control over our media and all that stuff, TV, music, all that.
Yep. Carla?
I kind of chose that one too, the minimizing access of non-cult sources and encouraging spying on other members. So for the media one, couldn't watch whatever we wanted. I'm pretty sure everyone I knew growing up in my church in California, none of us like purposefully had cable. We weren't allowed to have that. They didn't even have antennas so we could watch, a few channels here and there. It was just rent movies or play video games or go outside or be involved in church. As I got older, like we went to Bob Jones, all of that was monitored. They monitored what we went on the websites, our phones, even if we got onto the internet and then looked up something, they could see that. And it's like, dude, all of this straight from childhood to an adult, they're monitoring you. Like, they still want control of you in every aspect like that. And then even at our libraries, there were certain sources that just were not there, that were actually pretty crucial to what I needed for my work, but couldn't access it because it was a part of a worldly website.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But then going to encouraging spying, that's not even just at Bob Jones. It was just everywhere. If someone caught you doing something you weren't supposed to do, if there was a very devout Christian teen sitting next to you on the bus and they happen to see your hand brush next to some guy's hand, you get a talking to later on by an adult who you're like, you weren't there. How do you know that? You know, just all these random people coming up to you to basically accuse you of something and try to witness to you all over again and tell you why you have a heart problem. And then you're just like, but were you there? How do you even know that was going on? Like, so it led to a lot of not being able to trust anyone unless I knew that person was bad like me. Like, that's when I immediately was like, okay, I'm not just gonna you seem pretty cool and normal. You seem like you would laugh at this ridiculous thing that I think is funny, but the church thinks is bad. So let's hang out.
Literally, that's how I made my friends too.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I made
But
all
you
my friends.
said it really well. That's exactly what it felt like as a kid and a teen. Like, oh, you're bad too. And that's what a terrible thing. Like, there's no such thing as a bad kid. Like, they're not, they're just kids, teens, you know, like to feel that way when you're seeking out your peers is a dangerous, you know, could be potentially, I think, my case it ended up being kind of dangerous. Like, I was always looking for the bad kids because that's exactly where I thought I belonged, and that went well into my adulthood.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like if you're an undercover cop, they don't trust you until they see you do drugs, and it's kind of like that. You know, you're like, I don't know if I can trust this kid. Is this kid a narc? I'm not sure.
Exactly.
And so you got to make sure he's part.
You would often have to do something crazy or purposefully get in trouble to get like that person's favor, and then be like, all right, you're cool.
Yeah. So a couple things you guys mentioned, Carla, you're talking about how they controlled, you know, what you watched and what you read and everything. And what came to mind for me is, so you guys would have probably missed you guys would have run like the tail end of the Satanic Panic. Like, I think it was dying off by the mid 90s or so, but early 90s, late 80s, it was huge. Like, everyone was saying Satan was like, kind of like now it's come back, but how Satan is everywhere. But it had a lot of lasting effects in media critiques in Christian culture, well, independent Christian culture at least. So I thought of 4 things. You guys probably know some more that we were banned from watching, or culturally was just like, no, you can't do this. Dungeons and Dragons was huge, where they thought Dungeons and Dragons was like a literal portal into Hades. Yeah, I never played the game, but I remember having associations with it, like this game is evil. That's how I grew up thinking. Smurfs, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Smurfs, that like Smurfs.
I have a really important one, guys.
You what?
I have a really important one I want to tell you.
I think I have it written down. I'll get there, Kayla. Hold on. Just hold on, Kayla. We'll let you go. We'll let you go here. I already know. And so Smurfs was because like Smurf, Gargamel had a cat named Azrael, and Azrael is the name of like some demon. Like, oh my God, the Smurfs are, you know, of the devil. Pokemon was a big one. Like, people thought.
Oh yeah, we couldn't even have Pokemon cards.
My mom burned all my Pokemon cards, man.
Oh my God, they burned. What? They burned them.
She cut them in half in front of us. And burned a bunch of them in a garbage can.
That's so awful. That's so
never
awful,
be in
man.
My house. I'm sobbing. I'm like, you know how much money I spent on those?
Look, I just thought of another one. This was so. Do you guys remember Garbage Pail Kids? Like, they might have been way before your time. Okay, yeah, because I remember being really. I was really little. I know, right? I was really little. I was really little when the Garbage Pail Kids were a big thing. But basically, you know, Cabbage Patch Kids, right? You guys know the little dolls?
Yeah.
They were like these drawings of the Cabbage Patch Kids, but they were like, you know, covered in trash and shit. And I just realized that nothing what I was talking about. But Cabbage Patch Kids is actually what I was thinking of. But people would say the Cabbage Patch Kids were demonic too. And a friend of mine was telling me a few months ago, her parents were convinced that her Cabbage Patch doll was possessed by demons. They were convinced of this. And
I feel like that was a general rumor to have around your Cabbage Patch doll if you had one.
That was just really? Okay.
Like,
Okay.
It's probably haunted.
They have creepy eyes or something like that.
I don't trust dolls in general.
There's something unsettling about a Cabbage Patch girl, I can tell you that.
There's gotta be a soul in there for sure.
That's some Chucky shit. And so they were gonna get rid of it and burn it or something. And she convinced her parents as like an 8-year-old, well, can we just like leave it in the garage or something and make sure it's fine? And they eventually got over the demon thing. But grown ass adults believing there's a demon in a doll, it's wild. Kayla, and my guess is the one that you were thinking of is a little series called Harry Potter. Is that
a little series called Harry Potter?
Yes, series.
My mom sold. I was one of those, like, Harry Potter was all I had. Okay, so I was allowed to read them at first, and it came out like I think I was like 10 when the first book came. Well, it was like really popular, and so I had like stood in line. I had like a great set of books. And when I went to the Haven, my mom sold them because they weren't allowed. They were like, it was something that my parents were like purging out of. It was with my bad stuff. But yeah, but even like from like 15 till I was at the Haven, I had to hide my Harry Potter books. Like, so it was already banned in the house, but there was no separating me and Potter.
Harry Potter was a big discussion in church, at least for mine. It was an announcement.
Yeah. Oh, they preached about it. Yeah. All the time. And Pastor Carney had a particular like
what did he say
about Harry Potter?
What did he say?
I remember like some of us teens trying to like come up with an argument, and we were like we made this like big comparison to Lord of the Rings, which we were allowed to read.
Yep, decent
in Harry
argument.
Potter and like the good and evil and all that stuff. And I just remember Pastor Garnhan wouldn't even hear us. Like we weren't even getting one foot through the door, and we had like worked really hard. But yeah, he just said it was like not the same as of the devil. It was Harry Potter. It was magic. It was witchcraft. It was.
They were hell bent
like,
on his scar, saying that was like that's another sign of the mark of the beast.
Yeah, like looking for all these like weird analogies, and it was like weed. It was like a gateway drug to other hard fiction. I don't know. Like it was.
You're gonna let me watch Star Wars, okay?
That's so fucking lazy, right? It's just like, like half children's fiction involves magic. I remember when I was in college is when this was going on, and of course, antagonistic college students. Whenever this thing came up, the magic argument fell apart immediately. Fuck you! Like, there's magic everywhere. There's magic in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has tons of magic, and you guys love that shit. So we would. I remember being in a class, and one of my teachers, like lit, was talking about it, and we made the magic argument. It's bulletproof. You can't really beat it. And his whole thing was, well, I think Harry Potter is wrong because Harry Potter is always rewarded for his bad behavior. His bad behavior is in he breaks the rules of the school and he becomes the hero of the story, even though. And I was like,
to save the world.
Get the fuck out! I know, right? It was just Voldemort. It was just so lazy. And what's wild about this is that this was a commonplace belief. 20 years ago? Now nobody believes it. Nobody. Apparently, it didn't matter at all. But still, literally millions of people would like you said, take books from their children because they believe this shit. Not real after all. And the snitching thing. This is just a side story that I remember that happened to me when I was in college. So when I was in college, it was still the fairly early days of the internet. Most people had it by this time, by 2000, but it was a very primitive version of it. And we would, wait forever for these websites to load. And I was in college at our library at Maranatha Baptist University, and we were on the bottom floor of the library where we had like these little cubby holes with the students working on computers and stuff. So me and two of my boys, we were. Yeah, I know. That's right. Well, it's important to the story, and so it's because it had walls, around it. Yeah. And so me and two of my boys were working on the computer. And we went to this website called hoopstv.com. And hoopstv.com, it had updates on like NBA players, NBA scores, basketball in general. It had two sections adjacent to the basketball part. The first one was called, I think, Hot Rods, I think. It started with an H. It was about cars. It may not have been Hot Rods, but something like that. And the second one was called Honeys. And so we went to,
Hot Rods and Honeys.
I know, right? I think it was an HH.
Hot Rods and Honeys.
Yeah, right. Because it had to flow with the H theme. I couldn't remember what the car. And so we went to the one with Honeys, and it was just like bikini girls, like a whole page full of them. And so we're waiting for this.
Immediately.
Huh? I know, right?
Immediately.
That's our fourth H. But and so we were scrolling through like really slow, whatever. And unbeknownst to us, there was this girl. She was old. She looked like she was a senior. She was like, we were freshmen, whatever. And she kind of stood up out of nowhere. And we just jumped because she saw exactly what we were doing and what we were looking at. And we froze. We were just petrified in fear. And she's like, guys, I don't care. And then she walked away. I don't know that girl's name. I don't know where she is these days, but
shout out to her.
Shout out to her. She could have gotten all three of us.
Girl.
Yeah,
I know. I hope you're doing well. I open an open invitation to this show. If you're out there, if you're that random girl you're roughly 45 years old by now, but just contact me. I'd love to hear you
It's like,
sometime.
let them boys live.
I
Let
know,
them
right?
have
It's like,
their hoops and their honeys.
and their honeys.
Like, I ain't got
Like,
time for this.
They've
it
got
was just,
time for hell.
oh my God, because we were because listen, that was a stroke of luck. Like most of the people wouldn't have done that, but she really did not care. She's like, yeah, guys, I don't care. What are you doing in this school? But all right, let's go
What are you
to
doing here?
I know, right? Let's go to
TJ,
the
can we
T.
pause for 1 second? I really
Sure.
have to use this.
So now we're gonna go to the T, thought control, and I'll go first with this one. What do I have written down here with thought control? That is okay. Thought terminating cliches. This is shit. I didn't go for information. So what I was gonna talk about with information control. We just got done talking about something we should have recorded. Honestly, it was great, but it was about a Bible story that Kay and Carla were unfamiliar with, and it involved a priest chopping his concubine
Chopping
into
up a woman.
Dividing a woman.
after sending her into a mob where she was raped to death, and then
He offered his virgin daughter first.
Yeah, and he was amazed to find out that she died after this, and so he chopped her body into pieces and sent her all around Israel. And
The donkey told him.
yeah, the donkey. Oh, there's a story of a talking donkey too in the Bible. Yeah, good point. And so they were talking about how they hadn't heard that story, and what I first thought with the information control is that you'll find this a lot, that these pastors who know the Bible, they've read it, they know all these stories, they leave a lot of them out when they're talking to their congregation. Like that story, it's hard to make good.
That one was definitely skipped a lot.
It's hard to make good, like, moral and current day applications with that story. It is. It's difficult. I see why that's not brought up in church a lot. I never forgot it. When I heard it, it's like, what? And so that kind of stuck in my head like that. But I was thinking when we did in fact, I think it was Carla's first episode. We did the Bob Jones episode, and I went over a lot of the Old Testament laws on, like, if a woman is raped and she doesn't scream, that she's guilty of rape too, of adultery, and that she's to be executed on her father's front porch if she doesn't cry out for being raped. And that, just stuff like that. And I remember Kai saying, wow, they never talk about that in church. Like, yeah, they didn't, because there's no defending that.
Don't make no sense. Yeah, like, no, that's not.
Yeah,
way to make that cool.
And if she was raped and someone did hear her cry out, then
there would be a lot of questions before they would still.
The punishment for the rapist was that he had to pay her father 30 shekels of silver and marry her. That's what he had. Like, that's why she was forced to marry the rapist. And the Bible's very clear on this. Like, the Old Testament laws are brutal, and people just kind of skirt by them. And so that information control is there too, where they kind of just omit a lot of the more problematic stuff of the religion. And also the dismissal of scientific inquiry is like it's basically a requirement with Christian fundamentalism. And that's what really bothered me as a young man, that there was by the time I got to college, I kind of realized that this young earth creation thing didn't match up with anything I was learning, anything that made scientific sense whatsoever.
This doesn't math.
It doesn't. It doesn't. Like, there's no way to make it fit. And and it involves, in order to believe that the earth is roughly 6,000 years old and was created over a 7-day period, one of two things has to be true. Either one, every single discovery of the past 500 years that have convergent results with the same answer across multiple disciplines and several centuries that all tell you the same thing, that every one of them are wrong. Like, every last one of them fucked it up by a factor of thousands, by the way. They weren't just slightly off. They were all way off. Or they're correct, and God is purposely deceiving us. Like, that's it. Those are the only two answers. That, we know the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. We know that. And we know how we can measure how far away these stars are. Okay, Alpha Centauri is 2 light years away. And so we can tell like the Andromeda galaxy is like a couple of million light years away. So you're telling me the Andromeda Galaxy doesn't exist, or God created that light in transit to trick you into thinking it's 2 million? It doesn't make sense. Like nothing added up at all.
Yeah.
And neither did, like, I tried believing in like old Earth creationism. Like this is the way I say, well, God created the Earth and then evolution happened. That's how we got here. But then I had a problem with original sin, because if we were monkeys like a few 100 million years ago, like when did the sin happen? And I don't know, it all fell apart pretty quickly. But it's why so many people in these cults believe in every wild conspiracy possible, because it's got, what I always say is that when you don't understand anything, everything's a conspiracy. Like it's very easy to do. Is like you will never find a non-religious flat earther. It's not going to happen. It just will not happen. You will never run across somebody who isn't like deeply involved in like usually Christian conservatism. That's like, yeah, I have doubts that the earth is round. It's just, I hate that. I hate that so much that they've done that to us. But that was mine right there with the information control, because it's not cool. It's not cool. Anything you guys want to add to that? I kind of just ranted there. Sorry.
No, that was a great rant.
Can I pause for a second to get my charger? My laptop's at 6%.
Okay, so the second to last one is thought control. And whatever now with thought control, of thought terminating cliches. I know you guys have run across this where you ask questions. And so some easy ones are like, let go and let God, or something like that. Like stuff that just like, it's a complete they use the word platitudinous in the trials. Oh, that's a good word. I like that. But the one that I thought is a little less pernicious, but it's one that stuck out to me in either case, is legalism. I never liked the word legalism because all legal, I figured this out. I remember sitting in church and it's like, okay, they would say, you know, these are the standards and rules you have to follow to be a good Christian. Not like that other church with their legalism and like their extra stuff that they add. I was like, okay, all legalism is someone who has higher standards than you. That's it. That's it. That's all it is. It has no actual meaning other than someone who you believe is going too far. Because I got news. Someone thinks you're legalistic. There's no like actual evidence on what is, and they all practice legalism to some extent, because basically making an extra biblical rule. There's nowhere in the Bible where it says don't smoke. It's not there. They didn't have cigarettes back then, so of course it's not there. So people always created their own bullshit and to add on to it, but acted like they didn't do it and everyone else did. So that's the one that got to me. What do you think, Carla? What'd you get for thought control?
One, I forgot about that term, so
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I chose forbid critical questions about the leader, doctrine, or policy allowed. And
that's a good one.
I feel like the latter part of that is what I dealt with mostly growing up in church. Is just I started questioning ridiculous rules and policies and just wondering like why. Just the simple word why was not allowed. It was not okay. So I heard a lot of, you just don't have enough faith. You're not trusting hard enough. Or you don't believe in this person. Like they're the head of the church, or this person is high up in charge. How are you going to question the rules they've just set? Or like the things that we believe in that you have to follow. And I'm like, because I want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like,
yeah.
Is
like
that
just trying to make it make sense. Sorry, excuse
I'm just
me.
trying to learn like you want me to. So yeah, it would just, they'd throw it back in my face. Like, well, why are you doubting? You're full of doubt. And then they would guilt trip me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how it was for you, Kayla, but with what Carla was saying about asking why. And so the one thing that I always said about Maranatha High School growing up there, they did want us to ask why. I remember that being a big thing, that they said that, hey, make sure you're asking questions. They really pushed us to do that. And so they never minded us asking like questions about doctrine or about rules or anything. The issue was, you better like the answer. That's kind of what it came down to. Yeah, it was
I
like,
was just like, they had like crazy answers and they knew that. So there was, you're right.
If
you have to take it.
they would always say, it's like, oh, hey, I'm really glad you're asking this. Like, this is really good that you want to know. We love to tell you the reasoning behind this. This shows that you're growing in God and everything. Mm-hmm. And then they give you the answer, and you sit there, like, you think on it without, and you come back, it's like, yeah, I don't know, this answer.
I feel worse now. What?
Yeah, it's not computing. It doesn't make sense to me. and their patience would wear thin after that, because it's like,
Yes,
okay, what's
yeah.
going on here? How can this
Yep.
answer should have solved the problem, but it's not, and that's kind of an issue. That's what I would run into a lot, is that they loved when you asked why, but only so far, and
Yeah.
then they
Yep.
kind of get annoyed by that.
I agree. Yeah, that was definitely, I think, how it was at Maranatha. I don't remember it getting like almost like scary. It got scary to ask why by the time I got to the Haven, and the Haven was really my next step. The Maranatha, but you're right. It was a surface level encouragement, and then
if that wasn't enough for you, they started to kind of make you doubt your own salvation and be like, "Are you saved?
Yeah,
Do you actually believe?"
yeah.
I do, but damn.
Especially as a teen, that was so powerful. I think we've talked about this before, but I got saved a couple
Yeah.
times. So
I was gonna ask, how many times you guys get saved?
yeah, I think by the time I got to the Haven, I got saved at the Haven too. That was like my third time, and I was like, okay, this got to be it. This has got to be it.
It was once for me, but there was a lot of rededicating my life to Christ every time.
Yeah,
every time I went to the Northland teen camp, rededicated my life.
Yep. I
Yeah.
think I only got saved once, but I definitely rededicated. Yep.
Yeah. You'd be like, okay,
All right.
back.
All right, Kayla, what you have for thought control?
So just bringing it back to the Haven again, the one that stuck out to me was changing identity, which my surface level, or my top answer is that was the first thing that happened to me when I got to the Haven. And it sounds like a silly, I think I've told the story before on the Haven, but there was another Kayla there when I got there. She had been there a long time. So my initials were KC, so they called me Casey, which sounds like Casey. So my name was Casey for a year. But it was the way they did it was like, that was like day one. And it was too easy. It was like no big deal to them that all of a sudden, like, I was here at this place, I didn't even know where I was, and I was Casey now. But the more I've been sitting here listening and thinking about it, taking away someone's identity can be done in so many different ways. But one that sticks out to me in particular, just with women in general, was the immediate like change that you had to undergo in your attire to go to churches, to go to an IFB church. Like if you were in pants or you were in like a short skirt or something low cut, like you were going to be uncomfortable. You were going to be uncomfortable. So that was the climate. And so that's a change of identity there, you know, right off the bat, having to change the way you dress. And I'm sure for the guys too, same thing, like having to be weird, clean cut, and wear all this like formal, almost like formal stuff for guys. You know, that's a form of taking away somebody's identity. And that's just like off the top of my head. I feel like there's a lot more to be thought about or said about with that one. But
yeah, there was, and before the show we were talking about how there's actually a recurring theme in the Bible. And we listed off, there's a lot of Bible characters who actually had their names changed as well. You know, starting with the beginning with Abraham and Sarah, Jacob, Paul, Peter, and we found out that Thomas's name's Didymus, which means twin. Well, weird thing in the Bible, you know, this shit right there. But yeah, they're giving you a different name. And you know, I think the Bible talks about that too, about having a new name in Christ or something. The verse is escaping me, but I think that's kind of, yeah, you go, okay, that sounds familiar to you guys too?
I can't remember the verse exactly, but that phrase alone, I for sure remember that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's right there. All right,
we'll be back. We'll let y'all know what that was.
All right, so let's go with our final one here, and we'll start with Kayla for emotional control.
Okay. Really, not to reiterate what I said on the first list, but all of these kind of felt familiar to me. But the one I wanted to talk about was the emotional highs and lows. When I think back to like a way to describe my entire experience within the IFB, and then like the climate that it created within my house was emotional highs and lows. And the thing I want to emphasize about that is it becomes like the standard, the pattern of living, and so quickly to a point where you maybe, these people that are in these situations don't realize, like, hey, we went from being like a normal chill kind of family to we're having to discipline the kids every day. So there's like all this emotional drama every day, which leads to disagreement, whatever that might look like. But just, and even at the church, like never knowing like what mood, what emotional climate or state each classroom or Sunday school or preacher or person you are going to be having to give so much devotion and attention to was going to be in that day. It's just a lot of emotional ups and downs, like, and being in a community and a church or something like that should be a safe, calm space. Like it should be a steady, I think, even climate for the most part. It was about what you're getting from at least like the people that are leading you,
Great, big time. Carla, what do you think?
Promoting feelings of guilt or unworthiness, for sure, especially at Bob Jones. Anytime you step out of line, you're told you have a heart problem. They tell you that you've let them down. And then just the whole unworthiness thing. Like there are so many worship songs, so many Christian songs that, like, the lyrics, it all sounds beautiful, right? But then you actually take the time to look at the lyrics, and it's like some of them are talking about how unworthy we are, how we're nothing, and we're like taught, especially as a worship leader, like when I went to school to be a worship leader, I was taught to see myself as nothing, to just throw myself onto my knees and be like, I can't do anything without you. These talents I have, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. Like, unless I have God in my life, I am nothing. I'm not worthy. I'm not good at anything. I can't do any, we're taught to just like not believe in ourselves. And when I left that, and when I started to just be like, you know what, I did that. I actually, I'm capable. I can do this. And then something in the back of my head was like, chill. You're taking all the glory. You're not acting humble right now. And I guess it in turn goes to like the subject of humility and what actually is humility and confidence. So the church doesn't teach you how to be confident. It teaches you how to be confident in Christ, how to debate and, make other people feel dumb for not believing the Bible, but it doesn't teach you how to believe in yourself.
Yeah,
Like it's wrong to believe in yourself. So I've fought very, very hard to get to the point now where I'm like, I'm a bad bitch,
Period. Period.
And it's hard for people even now who have left the church to still believe in that, to believe in themselves, and they feel guilty for actually like thinking they're capable of more than what the church has made them feel they are.
Yeah, pride. I mean,
yes, yeah.
No.
They totally misconstrue all of that.
I have something to add to both what you guys both said, but before I do, Carla, you mentioned songs, and this has nothing to do with this topic, but it's just I was thinking about songs, but weird songs in the Bible. You know what always weirded me out? How many songs there were about blood? Like we would sing. Like, do you remember
blood?
There's power in the blood. Yes. Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? And my favorite, there is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins, and sinners plunge beneath that flood, lose all their guilty stains. That is a horrifying image of
sounds like a vampire cult.
It does. You know what?
Real weird.
Listen, you know when I thought of this? I thought of this when I was a kid. So my mom loves horror films, and she's loved them, forever. And when she and Dad got married, Dad hates watching movies. Dad doesn't give a shit about films. Like, he sits down, he falls asleep immediately. He's always been that way. And so he never wanted to watch movies with Mom. He never wanted to watch these horror films with her because they bored him to tears. So when I was old enough, like 6 or 7, Mom started watching the horror movies with me because she didn't want to watch them alone because she gets scared. So, and so I've been watching horror movies since I was way before I should have. But I remember watching this one with my mom when I was a kid, and the opening scene was at a church, and they were singing "Are You Washed in the Blood of the Lamb" in like a minor key. And so I was like, oh my God, this song is terrifying. Like, this is a perfect song for a horror film. And so, yeah, it's like a lot of songs about blood. It's kind of dark. When Christianity first came in, the first century, shortly after Jesus' death, people viewed Christianity as a cannibalistic religion because of the Lord's Supper, really. And how can you blame them? I mean, the whole chant is, "This is my body, which is broken for you. This is my blood. Consume it in remembrance of me." Yeah, of course they're going to think Christians are cannibals, but that's kind of a weird thing. The blood fascination, I don't know. This idea to me that the creator of the universe saw the problem with sin and humanity and thought, a human sacrifice.
I'll send my son and let him.
Yeah.
Kill him.
First,
That's that's the only solution.
Of course.
Kill my son.
Well, first, I want you to spend a few thousand years slitting the throats of animals and burning their bodies. And by the way,
I'm gonna make it weird.
First, I'm gonna make it real weird with it.
Real weird.
And you know how many times in the book of, I think, Exodus or Leviticus, when they talk about the animal sacrifice, like burning the animal's body, God says that the burning of that sacrifice is a sweet smell to him. He says it so many times, and it's like, what? You ever smelled burning flesh before? It's horrible. Yeah. It's ugh. But yeah. Weird dude. But all right. So emotional control, I have written down, I have altar calls. And what I was thinking was, I was talking to Kai about this. So it's fresh in my mind because we were talking about the sermons on sexual purity and stuff. And I remember being at Northland Baptist Bible College, and it was a basketball camp. So I think I was 15 years old. And so the boys were sitting and we had this sermon on how, listen, we know you guys are sexual fucking deviants. We know you can't stop thinking about sex. We know that you're disgusting little perverts. Now, in my case, they just happen to be right, but it's still not cool. It's not cool to be telling that to kids like that and saying that you have these sexual desires. And we know that you guys have, committed sexual sins. And I'm sitting there, I was like, I haven't. I'm good to go. And then he said, and by the way, some of those sexual sins may not have been with another person. I was like, oh no, how do they know? How do they know this? And like, of course, looking back now, it's ridiculous, but this is like, I think Carla was talking about like making people feel guilty. Because like, what do you do when you have this group of kids who paid to go to a Christian basketball camp? They're probably more or less bought into this whole religion thing. How do you make them feel guilty? You attack like basic humanity and say you existing as a person is a sin, and we're going to make you feel real bad for it. Maybe you should come up here and pray and let me know how great of a preacher I am. It's disgusting, and it starts when you're a child. It starts really fucking early. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't like even thought about it that way, TJ. Like it's like a way for them to feel, you're right, like make me feel good about being a preacher, and they're saying whatever they can to call you forward. Like,
exactly. Because if they just like stuck with like, hey, make sure you do good things, make sure you pray and stuff. All right, where's the excitement in that? And how are you gonna keep them coming back? Because now it's like, oh well, I guess I'm a good person after all. And no, you need to make them feel like garbage. And then the pressure mounts on more because the first one to crack will go to the altar is like, oh man, I should go. And then like you guys were saying, I know the Spirit is still touching someone's heart. I know the Spirit is still working on someone. And at some point you're like, okay, I'm gonna go
like, is he gonna shut? He's not gonna shut up if somebody doesn't go up there. And
exactly.
Then
yeah,
one for the team.
Like, okay, I'll take this hit. Yeah, let's go. Like the Chargers are playing tonight. And this one, Kayla, I thought of you when I wrote this one down because you mentioned it in one of the Haven episodes. Testimonials is what I thought of with emotional control. And we all know that testimonials would just get wilder and wilder as time went on. And you would hear these like what the itinerant, like random dudes would just show up in the church sometime. They would start talking. It's like, yeah, I was addicted to drugs for 5 years. I was in prison. I was living on the street. I'm divorced. I got 5 kids with 3 different women. I've, committed arson. They just go off on all this shit and everything. But then I found the blood of Christ and I've been a changed man ever since. And you thought, wow, this dude's awesome. That's incredible. And you're told, hey, you're not supposed to like think that's cool. But of course you did. Of course you did. And so when it's your turn to give a testimony, when the people know you really can't say anything. Like, yeah, I got saved at 7 years old. Like, oh, come on, I stole a Twix bar once, and so that's like pretty the extent of my sin. But like in your position, Kayla, like you guys were rewarded for good testimonies, if I remember right. Like you got like perks and stuff.
It was like this, like really passive aggressive, but like weird hierarchy system that they created amongst the girls, like constantly pitting us against each other. So there was like a couple of girls that had been adopted. Like these were girls that they weren't going to get to go home, but they were like the star leader Christian girls, and they gave their testimonies at church all the time. And we did that, like that was a money thing too, because we would go around trying, like missionaries trying to get offerings and stuff for the homes. So they would do it at our home church and stuff too, just like, you know, almost performative. Not to say that it wasn't sincere from them, because these were like teen girls as well, you know. But then when we started traveling we recorded a CD, and they traveled with a small group of us. And that's when I remember noticing it. But we were on, you know, there was like the middle ground of girls who were trying to buy in and constantly like striving to be one of the girls that gave their testimonies all the time and spoke all the time and sang all the time. But yeah, they would get, you know, less demerits, or, you know, or no demerits, or they were put in charge of the other girls, or, you know, some of the girls had one of the back rooms, so like a better sleeping situation. And there was always like 1 or 2 bunks that would rotate out of that room. There was like three, maybe 4 girls that like never moved, but then there was always like 1 rotating. So everyone was striving to get that. But that's when we were on the tour, especially, I remember like, it was just weird. It was, you know, we were, you know, compete, like to be picked as one of those random girls to get to give a testimony while we were traveling was like a big deal. And there was no like written reward system, but there was such a reward system. And I remember that's when I heard some of the most explicit testimonies that I had heard thus far from my sisters. And I gave the most explicit testimony I had so far. And yeah, just stuff like that.
Carla, you ever run across those experiences with testimonies in your time?
Not like in that sense where we got rewarded for it. It was more so it was more so just us trying to kill time so we wouldn't have to do what was initially planned in the first place. So people would just raise their hands. So it's 50-50. People would raise their hands and just,
it's brilliant, by the way,
talk for as long as possible, so that it'd be in Bible class, really. We just talk as long as possible, give our testimonies, because we always started out, anybody have any testimonies today? And we're all like, and just talk. But then there were those who like tried to just one up one another. So I knew people who would give a testimony, someone else would go, and then they would raise their hand again and say, I have something else I'd like to add. And it's like, come on.
It's like that scene in Bridesmaids.
Always a kid named Caleb too, man. I'm like,
God. What I enjoyed about the testimonies was Traveling Mercies testimony. They always like, okay, Traveling Mercies. That was always one. And or prayer requests, like something more than testimonies, but the Traveling Mercies. Yeah. But while I'm on the subject too, I loved Unspokens. I loved Unspoken. It was like, and sometimes you got the drama. The rare double unspoken. You're like, ooh, and I was like, okay, what? Yeah, I always was like, wouldn't God know there's 2 of them? Just say unspoken. I just thought, I don't know. That was always weird to me. But yeah, the prayer, those were always together. That's why they ran together in my head. Like the prayer request and the testimonies, they kind of ran those together. But those are, I like those things that only we would like. You say unspoken to someone, like, what is that? It's like a song or something? What are you talking about?
Is that a song?
It sounds like a song,
probably.
Right? Yeah, probably is a song title. I feel like we should do one with like like very fundy specific things that aren't necessarily pernicious, but certainly innocuous.
Oh,
like
I'm so down for that.
That would be
like
great.
watch night services on New Year's Eve,
Like
that
potlucks Wednesday night after church.
Potlucks for sure.
Dutch Blitz. They always were playing Dutch
Whoa.
Blitz or some shit. Remember that? I remember like some wild things like that. Yeah. Sheffy. Did you guys ever watch Sheffy? That was always a movie that they were playing. I don't know.
Daddy
Whatever.
daughter formals.
So you know what? Kai and I talked about that on our episode.
Did you?
I never saw those. I knew they existed, but Kai said she went to one.
Yeah, we
And,
went to one.
What was it?
Yeah.
Daddy daughter formals, like the only like formal or like dance like activity that I ever remember having was a daddy daughter formal.
Huh.
And it was like dads got dressed up and girls got dressed up and our shoulders covered, our dresses like altered and whatever to be weird.
Was that like the purity banquet?
Kind I think similar. It was like we get preached at about saving ourselves for marriage, and fathers will get preached about protecting our daughters, and leading them, being a man of God to show them what to look for, and then
guard our hearts
at a dinner.
Guard your heart.
But it was a big thing at Maranatha.
Yeah, wild shit, wild times. Well, all right, that was the bite model for cult control and mind control with these movements. We hope you guys learned a lot. In fact, we're positive you did. Of course you did. That you stuck around the entire thing, and you are our favorite viewer. Thank you so much. Any closing notes from Kai or from Kay and Carla?
I think that was super informative, and to my friend who said that we don't teach enough on the podcast, suck it. That was a good one.
I hope.
Yeah, bro.
I hope you listened to this one.
We'll send this clip just to him. All right. Catch you guys later.